Hello, I'm Evelina Roseman, a business economist and crisis manager with combined 20 years of experience in global corporations such as Citibank, Warner Media, and automatic data processing. My topic today is globalization, digital transformation, and human capital before and after this crisis. Technology innovation driving digital transformation of many aspects of economic and social life and processes worldwide strengthens globalization by expanding the space of economic activity and solidifying the links and connections between the interacting subjects. Lately, even before the virus, the trend of technology innovation making forces of globalization stronger has been at odds with the forces of trade conflicts, fracturing supply chains, dissolving global and regional agreements. Humans have been driving both movements, and trends in human capital evolution have shown some new, never seen having such significance before, fundamental needs of the workforce and shifts in the employers' and employees' expectations that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. These dynamics are directly linked to the slowdown in economic growth around the world. We have seen it even before the current events begin. China and its growth rate has been dropping from double digits that we have seen not so long ago to 6%, then 5%, and now even lower, with Hong Kong going into a recession recently. Further in Asia, Australia, that have seen unprecedented rates of uninterrupted growth for 20 years, this entire century, has been first literally burned by natural disasters and now impacted by this virus. India, another engine, and its growth rate has been downgraded by International Monetary Fund even before this crisis began. Europe. The engines of European growth have been sputtering for quite a while. Germany has entered a technical recession in 2019. Britain is dealing with the consequences of Brexiting that has taken quite a while. And finally, in the US economy, the technology giants that collectively represent about 20% of the global capital market and have been driving growth for the past 10 years, now risk through those multiplying effects to take a lot of the economy with them as they are seeing the slowdown as well. Examples of that. Facebook is following the trajectory of linear television with its audience aging. Apple is struggling to repeat its own early success stories. Amazon is risking to bite off more than it can productively chew without breaking its teeth. And other heroes of Uberized economy are increasingly, more often and in many more locations, seeing their practices guardrailed into more normal economic models with lower productivity and lower profitability. So this new mediocrity and the delicate state of the world economy, both terms coined by the then head of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, were in play well before the current problems began. Meanwhile, on the flip side, more than 1 billion people have been lifted out of poverty by technology and globalization, which means that they have moved from survival mode and the corresponding activities into the status of contributors on both the supply and demand end of the global economy. There, however, is the potential reason behind the fracturing that we have been seeing for a while. In accordance with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, as people move from the very fundamental ones further up, they're beginning to question the fairness of distribution of benefits of all of this business and the global corporations. And this may have been behind the centrifugal tendencies that we have seen spin up for months and possibly years before the current crisis began. Expansion of economic activity beyond dry land into water, air, space, and virtual environment during the fourth industrial revolution continues to grow and accelerate. So let's go over them one by one. Water. Energy is produced in and out of water. Floating liquid gas terminals, ocean-based wind farms, electricity generated from the power of high and low tides and river currents, entire systems of national utility infrastructure like Iceland, powered by natural hot springs, and lightning speed connectivity coming from the cables lining the ocean floor. All of those are realities of our time. And again, we have seen them started developing and accelerating even before the current completely virtual state of business and economy has begun. So it will continue to accelerate. Air. Drawing property lines on land and inside buildings has been increasingly supplemented by discussions of how far into the air does the owner privilege expand, because that air is now an integral part of the delivery and supply chain. Now it goes beyond the Earth's atmosphere, so space. Space is becoming the area of economic activity beyond the state-run science experiments, beyond the access of just a handful of rich tourists, beyond of being the ultimate junkyard. Space becomes the source and means of connectivities in geographies and at speeds that could not be physically and effectively accommodated by planet's surface. In fact, entire regions, for example, Africa, might be bypassing both land-based and mobile infrastructure in favor of connecting, which is now an integral part of economic activity, connecting through space. And using the stock exchange example, an European company's stock traded on an American stock exchange changes its price. And the change in price is beamed up to the satellite and then down to an investor sitting, say, in Asia. And so he or she makes her decision. And the record of this decision of buying or selling that stock is beamed up to the satellite and down again in a blink of a human eye. And this is before we even start looking into quantum computing capabilities. Integration of technology innovation into products, services, and the society render an unprecedented impact on global human capital and labor market. On the one hand, manual operations and cognitive tasks are increasingly supplemented by machine algorithms and, in some cases, fully automated. This is happening at an unprecedented pace, and jobs or areas of expertise covering this new landscape did not exist only a few years ago. And the ones that will be in most demand a few years forward can't even be formulated yet. At the same time, consumer services, especially the most basic ones, that some of us miss the most right now, like haircuts, domestic repair and cleaning, hands-on healthcare, babysitting, beauty services, cannot be outsourced to robotics because they do not deliver the ROI on such automation just yet. So the middle between this high-end and lower-end services, which used to be occupied by middle-class jobs and the corresponding levels of education, is getting completely washed out. And this trend worries researchers, given the background of the apparent underdevelopment of private and public infrastructure for training and retraining of personnel for productive work in new conditions. Multiple year research conducted by a private think tank, Automatic Data Processing Research Institute, starting in 2015 in 13 countries, based on data gathered through online surveys where approximately 5,300 responses and opinions were received from companies with more than 50 employees. That was 3,200 employers, show dramatic shifts in fundamental needs of and expectations of human capital. Some aspects of change are specific to the regions of North America or Latin America, Europe, or Asia, but some of these trends are overarching and quite universal. We will spend the next couple of minutes reviewing the most significant of them. At the basis of the new fundamental needs and expectations of the workforce of all age groups is an objective fundamental need to receive the highest level of satisfaction from life and work. To meet this need, changes and opportunities have to provide the new meaning of work for it to be beneficial to the broader society. Workers expect freedom to choose the conditions and locations for fulfilling their functions. Labor force needs access to knowledge and learning, resources for gaining and improving their skills, increasing their value anytime from anywhere. Human capital is looking for a higher degree of independence and for having more say in managing themselves as a resource. For all this to continue growing and evolving, global economic stability, or the stability of growth, is an essential a requirement. And that is stability of growth rather than stability of stagnation. As strange as all of these categories sound right now in the middle of this volatility and crisis. The driving force between those changes has been the new generation of workforce in the 21st century, perhaps not so well informed of the culture of work by the previous industrial and manufacturing phases of the world economy. And it's quite radically different in its understanding of the purpose of labor and freedom in the age of digital revolution. But they have the right to count on acceptance of their vision of the meaning of work, freedom and choice, appropriate and fair compensation for a well-defined job well done, getting paid real time based on specific contribution to the common goal, even if this doesn't happen everywhere immediately and is not quite universally adopted by employers just yet. But this is not specific to just the millennials or younger generations. This is all across all ages of the workforce. The expectation of having a multiple decade-long linear career with a nice banquet and a pension at the point of reaching the official retirement age is all but extinct among both the employees and the employers. Quite the opposite. The current prevailing need is for the activities and responsibilities to change and evolve. based on a reflection of personal interest and need for growth for the individual, and leaving the positive impact on society. Lifetime employment has been replaced by project-based assignments and contractual work with expectation of loyalty decreasing both for employees and employers. The role and job description of an associate is expected to evolve and change rapidly, reflecting the pace of progress and disruption and the workers' need to constantly learn new skills, acquire new knowledge, and increase their professional value in their own interest and in the interest of their employer as well. People look for the most profitable and fulfilling application of their talent and skills without having to stay loyal to one employer. And companies are looking for workers on the global scale now. This is not perceived equally positively by all players on the labor market and has some cultural variations in different regions of the world, but again, the direction of evolution seems quite clear. Some trends and shifts are causing alarm and anxiety for employers and employees as well. Automation and smart technologies, artificial intelligence replace and supplement human work of the most routine nature, and many feel threatened by it. Companies have to take on higher risks to keep up with and stay ahead of the coming changes. This means often setting higher reserves for addressing risks and other costs that companies don't necessarily have a capacity to absorb. And finally, some longer-term expectations voiced by the respondents to ADPRI survey across the world may have sounded far off just a couple of months ago, but have already become reality in many sectors of the global economy. One of them is departmental structures and organizational hierarchies that are often hindering progress, slowing things down, and imposing the burden of bureaucratic and administrative overhead costs. They should eventually cease to exist. And another one, causing a full spectrum of reactions from exhilaration to despair, depending on what angle it is seen from, is that retirement age should be completely up to the individual and independent of stereotypes and corporate regulations. To summarize, for globalization and technology innovation, there is no going back. It is a one-way vector, and it is only going to accelerate. The impact that those trends have on human capital are going to be profound. The dynamics of such economic indicators as cross-border investment, trade, capital and labor markets indicated even before this crisis that global and regional resource markets are entering the stage of major transformation due to enormous impact of digital revolution and current stage of globalization on the one hand, and the slowdown in economic growth and now a full-blown crisis on the other. In this context, the issues impacting human capital and the need for new and sustainable solutions to those problems will become particularly acute and relevant. Your thoughts, comments, and questions on this material, as well as for help managing this crisis and the economics of going back to business as usual or forward to business as usual after this crisis is over, please ping me on LinkedIn, Evelina Roseman, and be well. Thank you.